as you said, he lied about many aspects of his resume, his family, his education, his employment, his finances, just to name a few. But in your opinion, what's the most egregious lie here?
Sure. So I've said this before. He's lied about every line item on his resume. The most egregious lie that he told was that his grandparents were involved in the Holocaust. Brittany, my grandfather was a Holocaust refugee. I learned through his stories the horrors, of folks living through that time period of the absolute generational trauma and how 6 million lives were claimed. And for him to manipulate the emotions of Jewish voters in one of the largest Jewish populations in the country here on Long Island and Queens is so morally depraved and so disgusting that I was glad to speak out with rabbis and members of the Jewish community to call him out for that lie. Even though it might not be illegal, it is entirely immoral, and it's the worst thing that he's done, in my opinion.
You're calling him morally depraved, but I want to know too, aside from just your response, what has been the response of all of those on Long Island? Did they see this coming or do they feel completely blindsided?
Sure. So the day the New York Times story dropped, people called my office, Republicans who voted for him to say that they are outraged, Democrats who did not vote for him and did not want their member of Congress to be a liar and a fraud. This has been a bipartisan, island-wide coalition built to, first of all, we tried to make sure he wasn't seated, but now that he's seated, we're trying to get him removed. The day after the New York Times story dropped, I held a press conference outside his fake Whitestone address, calling on him to resign. I did not believe, and I am pleasantly surprised that weeks later, we have members of his own party in Congress calling on him to resign. So this movement has cascaded, it has grown, it is multi-generational, multi-racial, it is Republicans, it is Democrats, it is independents. It is what I say, people of good conscience who are patriots, putting country over party, calling on him to step aside, and calling on the U.S. attorney to hurry up with their investigation.
It's definitely something that has been bipartisan. And it has been almost a 24/7 news cycle. I was saying earlier to you, 5 minutes before I came on to talk to you, I had to make sure there wasn't any new news that broke regarding George Santos. But legislator, I do want to take a step back here. You ran for the seat that he now fills. I'm curious, what were your thoughts on George Santos, the candidate?
Sure. So I ran in the Democratic primary. I didn't run in the general. And so I actually never got to meet George Santos, which I think is interesting because I've served in elected office for 10 years, 5 years on the Syosset School Board, 5 years in the legislature. To never meet him once. And I've been, all over this district was concerning. It's almost like he was a ghost that came out of nowhere. But quite frankly, from what we read about George Santos, even before the campaign began, his involvement in an alleged Ponzi scheme, some of his statements, which were, on the fringe on the right in terms of January 6th and likening abortion to slavery. I mean, this person was a walking red flag. What's come out since has shown his moral depravity. It's shown that this is a person who is not well. This is a pathological liar and somebody who poses a danger not only to the institution, but I believe to our national security as well.
You called him a walking red flag. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy said on Monday that he, quote, always had a few questions about George Santos's resume. What's your response to that?
Sure. I think the most unfortunate part of this George Santos saga is that Republicans in the upper echelons of the party, many knew about the extent of these lies and did not warn the general public. They put party over country and not country over party. And I think it speaks volumes about those individuals who chose political expediency over doing the right thing. And so I believe that many more Republicans did know than are admitting. And I think, quite frankly, it speaks to a system where people prioritize winning elections over democratic integrity.